Okay, should I begin?
The stage is yours.
Okay, I like your t-shirt. I like that t-shirt.
Thank you.
Everyone, good morning from Colorado. How are you? 10 o'clock my time here on Mountain Standard. So happy to be here. My name is Micheal Park. There's a little bit here. If you're looking at my screen, my digits, take a look on LinkedIn to see if I'm legitimate. But I will spend only 5 seconds. I have had about 25 years in both digital and non-digital product development and management. That's it. My current gig, my current thing, my current team is BombBomb. If you haven't heard of BombBomb, we call BombBomb an async video product that professionals actually use compared to downloading and having it up in their Chrome extension. That's a little bit about us. And the reason I say those two things is to put some context of what I would like to talk to you guys about today. And that is my experience from just getting by as a product team effort, like just getting by to 6 product teams in the hyper span of 24 months. If you want a spoiler alert, if my energy is a little bit too much for you, I'll just give you this. I'll give you the synopsis. Yeah, don't do it. It's really tough. So if that's a little thing for you, just don't do it. No. Listen, I love times together like this. I love product. I love product people. I love developing product leaders. And one of the main reasons is because I was developed. And so I think it's our responsibility to develop. And what I do see when I work with new product leaders, people who are just getting into the product space, I see an appetite to learn, but I do also see a temptation that we can get drunk on philosophy a lot. There's so many great books out. There's so many great podcasts. There is just, we are in a plethora of data collection, but what I'd like to do today is just give you some really, if it's okay, some real practical advice for me in my situation, what worked in the last 24 months, what did not work in the last 24 months, and I'll just kind of hit on it. And then if we could do the last 10 minutes where you guys can maybe, so I won't go deep. Hopefully, I say that, but I'm a big talker. I believe I won't go deep, but in that last 10 minutes, let's circle back, and then I'd love to carry on the conversation and help you in any way I can, even after we're off of Zoom on any of these things that you want to dig in. So really, my intention here is I don't want to give you more philosophy. I think the category is saturated in philosophy. I wanted to tell you some real practical tidbits, some real nuggets, like this is what I know, might be able to help you. And the organization of how do I capture 24 months from going from just getting by, definition of just getting by. So if you are a smaller phase, whether you're in the beginning, I call it the front end hurt cycle, and you want to get product teams going, or maybe you are not in a leadership position, but you want to advocate for product teams. You've been reading blogs. You're like, this is what we should be doing. Marty Kagan says we should do it. And if Marty Kagan says we should do it, we should do it. How do you get momentum? And so I organized this in things I learned in the first 4 months, and these are arbitrary, by the way. The first 4 months, the 15-month mark, what did I learn? What was I going through? What were some of the themes? And then 24 months later, what did I learn? We're actually at BombBomb, we are actually really past 24 months. We are into like the 36 months, but it was at 24 months that what was in my mind, what I wanted to achieve with product teams, how I wanted to transform and have what I call a product renaissance at BombBomb, where we were just getting by with a kind of waterfall-esque approach, really well-intentioned hard workers, but how did we get organized and go after topics in a product team? And I actualized that at 24 months, and that's why I have 24 months, okay? So that's kind of what I want to do. I hope that sounds interesting. If not, I apologize. Please send all nasty feedback to Scott directly, not me. That's what he told me to tell you guys. So at the 4-month mark of getting in, saying we're going to do this, I call it the marinara sauce phase. 4 months into it, made a lot of mistakes in getting momentum here. I call it the marinara sauce phase because, you know, if it's a Wednesday night, everyone has a quick marinara sauce that they can put on pasta. And that's fine. And it's fine. And there's a need because you're so hungry and you're just busy, you just want to rush it. It's fine. But we all have spent some time on a Sunday when maybe we're having our family over, we're having some friends over, and it's been like all day, you know, that length, and it really does have a difference. And so I wanted product teams, because of being drunk on the philosophy, I wanted product teams really quickly. Like I wanted to get what was in my mind, and I'm going to tell you what was in my mind, but I wanted that really quickly. And the organization wanted it really quickly because it's hella expensive, right? So we went from, we had to hire an incredible amount of people. We had no product managers at the time when this idea, the genesis of the idea came. And we had designers cross-functionally, and it was just a huge, apart from the financial investment, it was just a huge investment. It was a mental. And I made the mistake of wanting to push so hard to get the formation because I was really stressed about showing results early, so that the effort from founders and the executive team would keep saying, we believe in this, keep going. So I rushed, I pushed. And my first thing to tell you is don't rush the buy-in on such a structural change to a major effort of the business, which is product and engineering. There are so many dependencies on what we do in a SaaS company that you cannot rush the buy-in phase. I did it. It was a mistake. I jumped over people, executive, co-founder. I did not, like a marinara sauce, let it build, answer questions. I did not do my product, my customer interviews, my stakeholder interviews like I knew better to do, having done products in the past. I rushed it. We particularly picked the triad model. We got the book inspired. We're like, oh my God, this is changing. This is gonna be the way to go. We broke out into the triad model. So our definition of the triad model is, of course, you have a lead engineer. You have, of course, a product manager, and you have a designer who is at making the 3 points of the triad, both product management, design, and data report to me as the head of product, and the engineering effort in our organization report up to my partner in crime, the CTO. Okay, so we have that delineation, but we got the typical model. We picked a book and we stuck with it, and we built a team and team. Now, in the book, I chose also to ignore some things. It's very clear in the books. Don't do this all at once. Don't do 6 teams all at once. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't apply to me. The books say just pick 1. I did 6 at once. I ignored the advice to start with 1 team, to gain wins, to gain momentum, to help with the buy-in on that very top point. I didn't do that because I was antsy. I wanted to show results. I wanted some of my frustrations on the whole effort to be resolved very quickly. I was impatient. It caused me more fundamental philosophical pushback than it needed to. I should have started with 1 team. I should have built that. I should have seen the success. And I should have got to a moment with 1 team rather being judged by a moment with 6 teams. Key learning. Because the reality of it is, it's going to take 8 months for the forming phase to turn into the norming phase. And that is just, it's 8 months. Now you're like, no, it's not, it's 4 months. Okay, whatever. It's 12 months. Everyone's going to be different. Like I said, I'm just going over my experience, but from my opinion and what we have seen, it's an 8-month process to get a team to this flavor of that it's norming, that it's normative of a result before we can really see what was in my mind. It's an 8-month process. Most of it is relational. Most of it is relational. It does not take 8 months to understand breaking things into smaller parts and releasing them over time. Not that side. Relationally, it's 8 months before there is trust within the group. 15-month mark, I call it. If the first one was the marinara phase, this is the power dynamic phase. So we're 15 months into it. I got 6 teams running. And of course, the emphasis in the beginning was getting the tactical side. So I want to break that down because that's just getting stuff done in an efficient manner. And then the result being sprint review, where the business is like, oh my gosh, that is awesome. I'm seeing momentum. So once all the tactical, all the practical stuff that we do was accomplished, is around the 15-month mark when it was just, but all of a sudden what was being questioned wasn't so much the JIRA level, but what was being questioned from stakeholders within the organization and the logo was the strategic thinking of the product team. And this is a great, Scott said, you do not have to plug Productboard, and I'm not. But this is the difference between what a product like Productboard does, is it addresses the strategic opportunities, the arc of direction, as compared to the JIRA level, which is the work of the sprint and the tactics to get a particular objective achieved. That's why I'm a big fan. That's why I'm a big supporter. They're good people at Productboard. If you know them, if you're part of this community, they're good people. It's a good logo to work with. So the tactical to the strategic was a big emphasis in the 15-month mark. It was to say to the product leaders within the teams, you're doing great tactically, and that's been a real hard push. But I need you to dig down and go find a third gear, because we need to start to work on where is this all going, and to illustrate, going to the next point, and developing relational equity with stakeholders within the company. Now, when I say stakeholders, I'm not being cute by saying the founders and the executive team. Of course, they are stakeholders, but I'm talking about stakeholders, anyone who is interested in the topic that the product team is going after on the part of the customer journey, okay? And so relational equity was one thing that I really found myself at the 15-month mark, encouraging our product leaders to invest in. And it was tough because right about this time, they just got some momentum in the tactical side of the business. They were just pushing work across the line in a real high quality way. And right about that time, it was kind of a message that said, great job, you're doing incredible. It's not enough. You have to continue to become strategic ambassadors to where this effort is going. The reality is that's frustrating for product people, because the fact of the matter is, what we learned at 15 months, that it's not that there's too many ideas coming to us within the organization or maybe externally from customers. It's actually not true. There's actually too many of the same ideas, is what we learned at 15 months. So there's not too many, there's so many ideas. I'm so frustrated with ideas. One-on-ones did contain that sentiment from product leaders, product managers. There's too many ideas. Everyone has you're hiding from people when you're going to the bathroom. When we were in the office, it's not that there's too many ideas. There's too many of the same style of ideas is the problem that's plaguing the backlog. The backlog in relevancy is stacking up. Everyone thinks these are relevance. And then there's the thing, the product manager's role. If Marty Kagan is Saint Marty of Kagan, then he says, in my language, the primary role of the PM is to develop a relevant backlog and to determine the prioritization of what things get built first. Now, there's a simplicity there that sometimes I feel my job's a little bit more than that. I know it is. It's a very relationally dense role, but sentence-wise, it's simple. It develops a relevant backlog that determines the prioritization of what things get built first. So there's a relevancy, there is a prioritization, right? Everyone, if you've done product management, you're like, well, there's a simplicity. There's a relevancy, prioritization. Relevancy, stacking up too many ideas. No, there's too many of the same style of solution. You actually it would benefit you and your product effort to have more ideas that are not centered on one particular solution, or fixated, I like to use the verb, on one solution. The reality is, at the 15-month mark, there was what I call the transfer of the hippo. First time I heard the term hippo was from another saint in the product that we follow, is Teresa Torres, Saint Teresa of Torres. And she define the term hippo, and I chuckle because it's the highest paid person's opinion, especially at the 15-month mark, especially when we've been a small group and we've achieved a fundamental product market fit. So many of the founders and executive team were the initial proximity to the customer was found in the executive team. So there was a good customer EQ, IQ, EQ. And so when product teams emerge, an empowered team goes after and continues that early phase effort of proximity to the customer. That this is at least the theory. And so what I noticed within my product leadership group, not just in management and design, but also in engineering, is it's very freeing when the charge, the power per se, is transferred from an executive level over to the product teams. But what happens is, and of course, as product managers, we're like, oh, finally I get my chance. But in that, the ego takes root, and I call it the transfer of the hippo. And so the hippo goes from the executive founder level, more customer facing roles. And the power has the temptation to erode. And then we now become the new hippo. Because of what we couldn't get to, we could never get there because they might have been prohibiting that. That fire turns into an arrogance that I'm guilty of. And I become the new hippo. That's the question at 15 months. Oh my gosh, have we just had a transfer from an executive level hippo to now the product manager? The lead engineer has become the hippo. Has the starvation of wanting to affect outcome now created a bias that we fault in the executive team? So what do we do when we find that as product leaders, as those who oversee a product effort? Well, we return to what we know as product people. What is the proximity to the customer's problem? Whoever is closer to the customer problem, not our problem, because we love to speak on our problems. You know what we should do? You know, we too are going through product-led growth at BombBomb, but gosh, it's incestuous with our own problems and what we want to solve. You know, we're constantly having to return almost to like a sticky note on the computer. Is this their problem or our problem, right? So the balance of who's the hippo, we got to get, 15 months, we were learning something that I believed in is getting product managers, designers, engineering team closer and closer and closer to the qual and quant data of customer problems. It's just imperative. It's naturally self-correcting and self-healing the closer we get into our customer interviews. Another way of saying it, do it another way, Michael. Okay. How many customer interviews? And I know it's hard and loaded and everything, but what's your just straight up audit of your distance right now to the customer? That should be something that looks at you on Mondays. How far am I from the customer right now? What do I take this week to get a little closer? If you have been in product and love product, that is actually not a judgy statement. You're like, no, I know that to be true. Okay, coming up at the 24-month mark. The theme is, oh my God, it actually might be working. Oh my gosh, I'm getting both tactical and strategic effort going. I had a picture, and I can't ever really tell people what I saw, but this is the important thing. If you're tackling an effort like this, if you are going to make a structural change, a renaissance in your department, whether you're the one charged with it, whether you're the one who believes in it, because we had both. We had people who wanted this change, and they had the people who had the ability to push this change forward. No matter where you are, you know, Franklin Covey in his old book, 7 Habits for Highly Successful, said something that has become so ingrained in the American modern workforce, and that is start with the end in mind. You got to see what is your moment. And I do not believe it's going to be something in Tableau. I don't believe that. It can be, but I believe it's going to be something on a deeper level. And I had that in my mind of what I wanted to achieve. And it happened in a meeting. Happened to be with my product managers, and the quality of the conversation, the quality of the colleague to colleague challenge. Can I challenge you on that? Can we go a little bit deeper on that? It was a moment where there was a quality in the product teams as we were discussing trajectory and where this whole thing is going. And I said, oh my God, I got it. It was a 24-month mark. Now, Do not, it could be 36 months. Maybe you are smarter than me. I'm sure you are, 12 months. But the point here is not so much the number, but it's actually achieving that outcome, being very clear of a quality of team, a quality of effort. And the results have just been fantastic. So the work says keep doing it. It's absolutely true what the books say. But I will tell you this, challenge yourself from jumping from book to book and what that represents, from philosophy, from approach to approach. Pick a book, pick a modality, stick with it, work it, and just keep going. Now, 24 months also, I realized as we were starting to get really great contribution from the 6 product teams, that there started to be a slight addiction within the group to this incredibly, even though it was so painful, it was a metamorphosis. There started to become a little bit of an addiction to the growth tempo that we were doing. And so you started to see product leaders going, when it started to slow down, because we started to output, we finally achieved some sort of modicum of success. All of a sudden that power, like, wow, is this the tempo we should be contributing at? That was something that snapped and got me at the 24-month mark. I love this expression, continue boarding. I believe I'm the first one to do this. So we focus so much on onboarding, but what about continue boarding? What about new people who come into the product teams? When you start a momentum, a renaissance, it's very easy to capture the power of a moment of change. Like, let's do this, let's solve this problem. What happens when someone comes on at the 24-month mark and all of the teams are not so gung-ho on it? How do you continue to board this culture? And what's important so we continue that way? And of course, always as any leader, when you have your eyes on this, you'll have your eyes off that, and so we say as product people, if we want to pick something up, we have to put something down, right? If we want to invest, we have to divest. Well, this is what happens, is this effort can be so all incorporating that you take your eyes off of other things, like what? Like developing your job market pool. Because what happens that you don't know is that the great resignation happens, and now you are a little bit farther than you've ever been because you've been trying to build a team away from your LinkedIn pool of potential candidates and the outsourcing and the development of future talents to join your organization. So in closing, do this. I don't mean that, just do this, but this is what I would say to you. Do this. Do these 4 things if you are in this phase in growth. Number 1, beg, borrow, steal for a champion. You need one. Beg, borrow, steal for a coach. You need one. Beg, borrow, and steal from a champion, coach, and a mentor. You need it. It could be the same person, but each of those roles, you need a champion, you need a coach, you need a mentor. You ought not to do this alone. It's too hard. Number 2, this is a game about humans. Product is a human game. If you were told in school that it's about data and interface design, if you're a designer, it's about pixels, it's not right. This is a human game, okay? In his latest book, following up from Inspired, Marty Kagan in Empowered says the product role is more like an ambassador. You gotta get better at your human game. And so what do? You use tools like therapy, straight up. You use tools like the Enneagram. You use tool like, whatever it needs to do, you must make investments like you've made investments in other areas of your product. You must get better at the human game. You must yourself aspire to be a champion, a coach, and a mentor, and fulfill the cycle. Lastly, you've got this. You can do this. Building a team, building an effort, building a new product team, even if you're running 6 product teams and you want to double it. You got it. You just got to do your product person thing. Like, go after this, no different than you would a product. Build consensus, break it into small pieces, determine the outcome, reassess, come back, keep going, find a coach, find a mentor who would say, keep going. And lastly, all of these books, they're fantastic, but one thing I've learned, it's really not about staying, like, oh, I'm going to stay inspired, I'm going to stay. It's about returning. It's about getting lost, forgetting where you are sometimes, like, what are we doing? And then coming back to what you want to achieve in your mental picture. You'll never be there permanently. Don't judge yourself if you find yourself pushing an old modality that you want to, so Here's the stuff that I return to. I'll post this in the Slack channel. This is my book. These are the books I return to when I do lose my way in this, when I'm like, what am I doing? And when I say I'm just going to go and work at a coffee shop and get really good at saying non-fat latte for Scott, these are the books that I return to when I need a little bit of shot in the arm. I will post this in the Slack channel. All of these books, if I've earned any of your, at least your entertainment, all of these books I think will support you in any capacity. And that's what I have, Scott. And I would love to answer questions in the 4 minutes. And if I can't get to it, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm here to help. I'd love to help. I'd love to help. So if there's anything that you want to dig down deeper, I'd love to help.
That's great. Thank you, Michael. That was awesome. As always, full of energy. I just love what you bring to this and really appreciate you sharing your passion for building great, strong product teams and stuff.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to start it off with some questions while we're kind of waiting for some of the Q&A to come in. If the people have some, you talked earlier on a little bit about how important this sort of forming, storming, norming part of things is in getting that team kind of really feeling like it's truly a team and truly humming on all cylinders. And I think you marked the 8-month mark. And I know you mentioned earlier you thought it would take maybe a little bit faster or might take a little bit longer potentially. What was some of the, I guess, the patterns that you went through as a team, particularly working through a virtual work environment where you might have been able to form, storm, and norm much more in person in the past to create those relationships, create those bonds, and create those connections?
Hey, listen, as a leader, you got to encourage the hard stuff. You even heard it in the first 2 things, right? Like, how do you, I mean, some of the questions, how do you deal with people who are a pain in the ass? I'm like, you got to take them out to lunch. And I am not being like cute and trite and funny, like literally, you must make investments. If you had $100 as a product leader, I really believe that 30 of your dollars has to go to investing in the humans that you work with. Okay, you may be like, you know what, I don't like to do personal things. Fine, I'm not saying personal. You must go out to lunch. You must return to the conflict. You must address the elephant in the room. Hey, your opinion to me is important. It's important to me, this is the product leader, that you feel heard. Can you walk me through how you're seeing it? And at the end of the day, just like we do in product, right? If we were to build this thing, what would you see as success and outcome? Because it's important that I hear that from you. Like that style, if that is not part of your job, I'm going to say you got to be careful. So things like that, Scott's always back returning to those type of things. A good book on conflict resolution, really, really important for product leadership.
Yeah, perfect. You talked about the value of a coach, mentor, and supporter. Like who did you lean on? I mean, I know part of it was, we often talk about giving our teams people that they can lean on in terms of the quality of our leadership and surrounding them with people that can give them advice. But who did you as a leader lean on in these challenging times?
That's great. So couple ones, you know, I had the proverbial boss mentorship relationship. So I'm lucky there. Not everyone gets that. I realize that. I have some, it's about categories, right? Like what category are we talking about? Is it in product excellence? Well, then we got to connect through communities like Productboard is doing with people, right? And sometimes that's one way. I have some frustrations on an executive team level. Like I'm frustrated right now. I have a colleague in a different department that is a mentoring role back and forth. It's not always, you have gray hair, I don't have gray hair, teach me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's sometimes it's that, but it doesn't always have to be that. It can be like, hey man, can I tell you, this is one of the best things you should be hearing. Can I tell you how you come across in a meeting? Let me tell you, you need to build trust with someone who can say, can I tell you how you're coming across in that meeting? Okay. And the third thing is, honestly, in conflict, in the human side, you're going to need someone, a professional in some capacity that you're going to actually have to cut a check to, who's going to support you and say, no, you're not crazy, but in this one instance, you are. You know, you're going to need some sort of professional coach, therapist that is going to have to work through if you want to work at this type of stress level. If not, whatever is not transformed will be transferred to your team.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really wise.
Whatever is not transformed is going to be transferred, and you're going to put it on the very people that you are saying you're trying to empower. That is true.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome. Thank you very much, Michael. Really appreciate the time today and contributions. Again, as always, fun having you around and really enjoyed the talk. And as a reminder too, if you found today helpful, we also have another great event coming up in October on how to run product at scale, which is our Product Excellence Summit here at Productboard, and encourage you to check that out as well. There's information as well on the product makers community for that.